our next topic, and I'm excited that you are all going to participate in this subject. And here it is. Sundance Film Festival 2022. Is Sundance too woke? Now, before we get into this, let me just say I've been going to Sundance since the 90s. I think 96, 97 was the first time I went. We've been covering Film Threat Film Threat has been covering Sundance since the early 90s, when it became an important film festival, right? When it changed its name to Sundance in 1989. And in my opinion, having attended that long, Sundance has always been woke. It's always been, and woke is actually a term that's been co-opted. My friend Dante James, who is a writer for Film Threat, who happens to be Black, said that is a Black term, and it meant be woke, like be aware of cops and be on your guard so nothing happens to you. But it was co-opted by white liberals. Seriously, this is what Dante always gives me the speech about that term woke. He doesn't like it, but Sundance has always supported, emerging filmmakers, films that could be considered indie films that tackle topics that could be also considered woke, right? And that's fine. These are small indie movies. But what's happened of late as Sundance, now I'm seeing normal people kind of look at Sundance and go, is this festival's just super woke? And I'm gonna present an example here. I have to share my screen here. I'm gonna share. I gotta share my. It's gonna get weird, but I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna share a screen. Talk about this while I bring up some. Alan, talk about this while I gotta bring up a thing.
Yeah, well, it's the. I'm not sure if you're going to talk about it, but the land acknowledgements. That's been going on for several years, but this year the land acknowledgement video. Man, it's like a sledgehammer to the head, and I feel bad for you white people, you colonizers, this
is easily the longest. I have to chime in here because I was the first time I sat through it and watched it because respect, but it was like, man, this is the longest land acknowledgement.
Now, wait a second. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't even know what a land acknowledgement is, this started at at Toronto and some other festivals, and it's definitely really leaning into white guilt, right? Which is, look, it's a thing, right? And so whatever, but it's so heavy-handed now. And also,
oh my God.
Could you, first of all, Alan, could you explain what a land acknowledgement is, because some people don't know what it is?
Yeah, it's essentially because Park City, where it's located on what used to be basically the land of the indigenous people, Native Americans, which is I struggle with what term am I supposed to be using here, but Park City used to be on the land of Native Americans, and so they wanted to acknowledge the fact that white people came in, took it over, and pushed out Native Americans into reservations. And so this is kind of, I think you talk about appeasing white guilt. Okay, I'm fine with that. It's just this year, they've now added the environmental message to it. It's not only are we acknowledging the land, but now we're talking about how we are destroying the environment. And we can argue about that, but the point is now gotten to be a message. I think it's the term was support indigenous resistance. That's some of the phrases being thrown around in this opening film. And again, it's just a sledgehammer to the head. It's so heavy-handed that it's just like, who they're speaking to.
Alan, can you get the video and actually put it in here when you cut this?
I don't know if they make it available, but
what I'm saying is
start up any feature. I think it's just a start of any feature on there.
Yeah, anytime you start watching a Sundance film, that's the first thing that comes up this video.
The thing that's weird about it, is that it feels like creepy religious. It feels like a weird, almost religious, ceremonial kind of thing that we must do this. And whenever something gets a little too religious-y for me, I always think of beneath the Planet of the Apes and the cult of the humans that lived underneath the Earth's surface and worshipped the giant nuclear missile that could destroy the entire planet. And they actually have like this choir, and they say, they're basically praising their god, which is the nuclear missile. It's like religious fervor that's gone too far. I think there are aspects of COVID culture that have actually even gone in that direction, where it almost has a religious sensibility. And that's the thing about the acknowledgements. Also, do the acknowledgements make sense? It makes sense if you're on the land.
Mm-hmm.
This is a virtual film festival. You're not on the land. There's no land.
That was already made.
Yeah, but they already, because it was going to be live.
Yeah,
they already had the video.
They had the video done. So you're in Anaheim, California.
They did it last year when it was virtual.
Did they do it last year too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They do it every year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Okay, it just seems weird. It's a virtual film festival. Who knows where people are watching this? They could be watching it in some other country. I mean, look, we're never gonna not have, guilt about like where we. I just like, I don't know where this cycle ends. Like, where does it end? Like,
that's my point. It's one thing to. This is my problem with the woke movement in general. All it does is it points out a problem, but it never says, okay, now that we point out the problem, here's what we would like. Here are our demands, so to speak. And so this video just says, you white people, you're bad people. I love the fact that I'm not in this group. That you people are so bad that I need to call it out constantly, like a nagging parent. And but there's okay, you called it out. What are we supposed to do? What would we need to do to appease things? And I have no clue.
Well, the thing is, I think it's to make white people feel better. It's just to make white people like, look, I helped, I did something, and I don't know. I just, having been around Sundance, like I've seen those people that are like super extreme, and I'm all about like, hey, you do whatever, cool. Like I love I have made friends at Sundance with so many people I would never have met otherwise. And I love the energy and environment. It's such a, and Sundance was way diverse before that word was something that was in the mainstream, right? They were all about it. And I kind of feel like they've gone so extreme where it's now become like, it's become almost comical. Like, it's always better when someone not white like me says it. So thank you, Alan. Please speak on that topic. But I'll show you another thing, and maybe Norm will have some thoughts on this. I need to share screen, which is probably going to be a little embarrassing for me. I need to share my my entire screen. My entire screen, yes. Share, and I need to show you. Can you
teach how to share things? Or?
Can you see this?
No,
you can't see this. Oh, I'm trying to share.
No,
I'm trying
Have
to
you
share.
not done this before?
Not. No, I'm
Did you hit the share button on the bottom and then select the window?
We're gonna talk me through this.
Yeah, and
we're
then
gonna talk me.
Here, let's just
Film Threat Tech Support here. How can we help you?
There we go.
There we go.
Can you see that?
No.
No.
Oh wait, sorry, I'm clicking the wrong thing. There we go.
No, this is weird. I think there's a problem with StreamYard here. I mean, are you truly sharing something? Did you hit that share?
Yeah, I'm sharing something.
And then you connected it to whatever device you want to share?
It says it's lost the permission to share. I've got to go to Google Chrome. Hey, why don't you answer some questions in the chat?
So Shinatsky says there's too much money in the problem. There is so much money in the problem. I think you're on to something there without getting overly political. There's money. Black Lives Matter raised a lot of money last year, 2 years ago. Let's see. Once you solve a problem, then you can't keep going on about it. That's true. Can you imagine what would happen if we solved the problem? If we solved racism? If we solved, yeah. Okay, and then Ataria says, "Switch it on and off again. Just reboot." Or
Is she talking? Are they talking about the woke issue, or are they talking?
No,
about...
we're talking about Chris's screen sharing problem.
I will say, as far as circling back on the land acknowledgement and the woke, and like this year, it went from showing an acknowledgement and gratitude to activism.
Mm-hmm.
It went from this land belonged to these people to get involved and help us fight, and it was like, what is this?
Well,
it
became about the environment.
Honestly, I don't want to be recruited into an agenda. I mean, seriously, I don't want to be recruited. I want to the best independent films are the movies that actually maybe have some kind of message. It's woven into the story and the characters. It's actually not a part of. It's not just sort of on the surface, like where the agenda trumps story and character. The agenda is put ahead of that. I mean, Quentin Tarantino, Sundance alum, has discussed this ad nauseum, that the agenda is now front and center, and now it's activism. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to recruit me into your agenda. Like, that's not what I signed up for. And it's the worst way to sway hearts and minds. If anything, there can be pushback from that. So, Alan, I just texted you what I wanted to share, and maybe you can share it. In particular, I would like Norm's opinion on what I just texted you. If you could throw that up on the screen. I'm sorry, but it's really important to what we're talking about now. And that is the thing that has shifted. Now it's not just about like, let's feature marginalized filmmakers. Let's feature gay filmmakers. I'm all about that. Like, I love discovering new voices that have a different perspective and point of view. I love that. I want to see the world through someone else's eyes and how they see it as a way to learn something from that. But I don't want you to tell me how to think. People, as it turns out, don't like to be told how to think, or at least I don't. I feel like most people don't. Now, can we have a discussion? Let's have a discussion. I want to hear, I mean, and in most cases, I really actually enjoy not necessarily debating, but at least discussing ideas where I can have my mind changed about something. Great. Let's have that discussion with respect. But just straight up activism, I think, is just not the way to go. Rob, you were about to say.
There's a short film. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say, I think that's one of the best aspects of a film festival, quite honestly, is the discussions that take place, the question and answers that take place with those who created the film and who have that, inherent message baked in, that they can discuss it and say, hey, this is what it was about. And it allows for a back and forth. It allows for a rhetorical kind of, setting for the films that we all just witnessed collectively. And then as we all know, art comes, there's so many different interpretations of art. So when we have those discussions afterwards and we meet the people who are involved and we hear the stories that went into making these films, that's, to me, the foundation of what makes festivals so unique and so great. And having it just kind of pre-formatted in this way prior to takes away that kind of natural discussion that should take place.
It should be organic, and it should come with some, at the very least, understanding and respect. And I feel like I've for the most part gotten that at Sundance. Now, this is the form when you sign up as a journalist to attend Sundance. You're told you must fill out this form. And I was told to ask members of my team. And honestly, Film Threat is I should actually say this in advance. Film Threat is an apolitical. We're politically agnostic, right? Which means my goal with Film Threat is to be is true diversity, which is diversity of opinions. I'd like to hear all opinions from all sides, all represented. And when we have certain types of films come in, we have a horror movie. Hey, Bobby Lapierre loves trashy, low-budget horror like Full Moon or Trauma. Norman Gidney, and only because I got to know Norm, and he's very open about this, happens to be gay. We get we have a film, Gay Cinema, that comes in. Norm, for the most part, tends to review that. We have a woman who's a New York feminist who writes for us. When we get a type of film in, we try to assign movies to those kind of predisposed to kind of already be kind of in that world. We are politically agnostic. I don't know why other entertainment media outlets are not like this. Why is it that it seems all entertainment media outlets seem to be on one side of the equation? Film Threat, and I have tried to remain this for years. We'll cover documentaries like The Boys in Red Hats, which is some might consider a conservative or right-wing documentary. We'll cover documentaries from the left. I don't care. Is it something that will move you, that will do what is it unbiased? I find that there are very few unbiased documentaries now. Documentaries today are just propaganda for the most part. For the most part, most documentaries you see these days are on one side of the issue or the other. But this form is something they make you fill out. Now, I always prefer not to answer because, and I think it's weird, like if someone starts writing for Film Threat, my first question is not going to be, say, to a new
what's your sexual preference? What's your
sexual preference? Why would I ask someone that? I feel like that's very personal. Or what do you identify as? It's not the first thing on the top of my mind. The first thing on the top of my mind is, do you have a passion and a love for movies? Let me read some samples of your work. Now, if I start to read someone's work, I can usually get a sense of kind of who they are as a person or kind of where they stand. And that's great. I love to be in the head of someone else and kind of see where they stand. But I'm getting a little annoyed at this because not just Sundance is doing this. Every film festival is doing this now.
Two things. In the 80s, if you had asked someone what their sexual preference was in getting a job, do you know how much trouble you have gotten yourself into? And then the second thing, this form is not a form that the writers, the press, individual press members fill out. This is what I had to fill out for every single member of our team going to Sundance. So I had to disclose the sexual orientation and ethnicity of all the members of my team going out. And that's that, to me, that's...
You got mine wrong, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's to force employers then to have to go out and find out this personal information that has nothing to do with their job and then report it to Sundance. There are big problems with that.
Well, Norm, I want to hear what you have to say, because you're very open about that you are gay. I even happen to know, and disclose it if you want. I know your Grindr username, and it's Chef's Kiss. Probably the best Grindr username I've ever heard.
Mary Toppins.
Mary Toppins.
Okay. Okay, and to be clear, you didn't have to ask me if I was gay or not, because we were in a gay bar. I'm kidding.
I don't care. I'll go to a gay bar. I don't give a shit.
Those are the heaviest scores. I'm telling you right now. Okay, so as far as this form goes, okay, so I'm gay. Who cares? Who cares? That doesn't define my character. It doesn't define me. It doesn't define my ability to assess a piece of work, and let you know how it affects me. So yes, I have insight into a community, but that's it. So yeah, I honestly do think that these particular questions cross the line. They're a little invasive, and it I don't know. I mean, I know that they're trying to be as inclusive as possible, but yeah, like the first time I filled out this form for myself, I was like, are they going to ask me if I like otters or bears or twinks next? Like, I don't know. So I don't understand how my orientation has anything to do with my ability to review a film or report on it.
Well, I always look at these sort of initiatives as it just means inclusivity means the opposite of it, which is just fewer white people. I mean, that's just, I mean, there's an article, you can look this up, called Hollywood's New Rules, that was on Barry Weiss's Substack. And she talks about where finally people in the industry are starting to say, which is, I feel like it's an overcorrection. Obviously, like, there needed to be changes. No one disagrees with that, but now it's been an overcorrection. And my whole thing has always been like, hey, and even like Brie Larson called it out in the most awkward, horrible way. I always thought, like, yeah, more chairs at the table, but it didn't mean taking chairs away. Now it's fine. I'm willing to say, look, I would rather someone else from my team, from Film Threat, experience Sundance. I've been going to it for years. Fine. I won't go this year. No problem. You know, it's not a big deal to me. But this kind of thing, which now every film festival seems to require this, Tribeca, whatever, they're all asking this. It's a swing in the wrong direction that I don't think is entirely appropriate. And people think they're doing a good thing by it. And I actually think it's going to have an unintended negative result. I want to see, we're going to continue this discussion, but and we haven't even started reviewing movies yet. I told you guys this could go a couple hours, and we're
okay. I've got a screening at 10:45 PST.
Okay, well, we'll get to you. We'll get to you. But I want to get to people in the chat and hear what people in the chat are saying. Alan, can you highlight some of these, and we'll talk about it. Here we go. We got Shinatsky.
People in Hollywood, to put it simply, don't live in the real world. They live in a small community with lots of money that is nothing like everyone else's life. I agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, especially with the messaging about COVID, you know, it seems like there's Hollywood and LA and how they're handling it, and then there's the rest of the state and how we're handling it. But again, yeah, there's this echo chamber of Hollywood that's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna go through these real quick. Charlie Stevenson says Sundance is an event created to make your work event / ski vacation a tax write-off. Charlie, you are correct. That is exactly right. Shinatsky says, I'm not even reading these before I'm putting them up, so
you might want to actually.
Shinatsky, ask feminism.
I like you peeking, Norm.
Ask feminism about solving problems. 60 plus years of activism, and women are oppressed worse according to them. Shinatsky is being very they've turned white males into a marginalized group while not helping the groups they claim to champion. That could be true. That could absolutely be true.
Although you white guys have had a pretty good run.
We've had a pretty good run. But the thing is this, if you look back, people act like there's never been diversity before the year 2020. Look back to movies in the 70s. Look back to movies in the 70s, right? The first Alien movie, 1979, you know, directed by Ridley Scott, right? Like, you had Pet Kodo in that. You had a strong female lead, but you didn't really need to call it out, who literally saved Jonesy the cat, you know, the whole concept of save the cat, which is a screenwriting thing. Shinatsky says, I personally think this all is to keep the people at the top from being replaced, because the people at the top are still the people in the real power positions calling the shots, not diverse at all, by the way, because minorities can't get ahead and they already screwed. And now they made it so any white youth can't get anywhere, which is freaking weird. D. Martin, the point of giving out this information is, I think the point of, exactly. The point of giving out this information is, exactly. All that Disney has done is destroyed any possible artistic autonomy that a creator could have. It's all corporate filmmaking now, folks. It's all factory filmmaking. The money people will look at creator-led and see the woke films failing. We better stop that. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, we have an article about that in Film Threat.
Exactly.
I just wish we knew how
by the way,
felt.
we have a
well, yeah, I'll bring in Sabina in a minute here. Okay. Frank the Bunny 666 says Ryan Cannell is my source for gay cinema. Sorry. Shout out to Ryan Cannell, RK Outpost. He has a great YouTube channel, just past 100,000 subs. So shout out to him. Shinatsky also says, because the people that own them have those views and are using them to further them. Wow, we had a lot of comments here. Shinatsky again. It's called consolidation. It's called consolidation. You take over everything slowly and make it so there's no voice that can challenge you. I do think it's really unusual. Like, I'll get invited to the Latino house, right? Whenever I go to stuff like that, first of all, it's free drinks, and I'll go there, and I love it. I'm usually the only white guy there, but it's really about that group sort of cheering for their own team, which is a great thing. I just think that this is what I've always loved about independent film. Independent film, nobody cares. Nobody cares where you came from. Nobody cares your sexual orientation, your ethnicity. No one cares. Did you make a film that I identified with, that moved me, that I could put myself in someone else's head and actually have an experience that makes me look at things differently, right? I think that there's value in that. So I want to thank the chat for that. We're going to, oh, and look at this. Ryan Cannell is here. Hail Film Threat. Ryan, congrats on 100K subs. You were great last night on FNT. Fantastic show as usual. Thanks a lot. Yes, Ripley was a cat lady. Jonesy, of course. Yeah. But look, I want to wrap this up. I want to bring in one of our other writers, Sabina. Hey, Sabina, join the conversation here. How are you doing? All right.
Hey.
Here we are.
But
So we want to hear your thoughts now.
Well, no, I would definitely want to get your thoughts, but what are your thoughts on, like, has Sundance gone too woke? We talked about, like, this form we have to all fill out. We talked about the land acknowledgements that don't make sense for a virtual film festival because who knows where you are. Like, has it gone, like, now it's gone from what this used to be, this, like, you know, we're gonna build up support and we're going to champion, you know, emerging voices, to now get with the sort of almost religious fervor of what Sundance has become with these land acknowledgements. And now I have to fill out a form and actually ask what the sexual orientation or how people identify who are writers that write for us. And I feel a little awkward. I actually, Sabina, you have mentioned things about your personal life, but I would feel weird asking you, what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, female, woman, you know, I think what I've noticed with this year's Sundance, and after and attending for many, many years, you know, the highlight of the Weinstein era, where it's all Hollywood, where it's money, 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 where it's get me into a party. And now, 2 years in the pandemic, you can obviously see it was tough to make movies. It's sparser film. There's a lot more audio than there is head interviews and in-person interviews. And I think that the Sundance is kind of cleaning up, mopping up what happened with all these movements and trying to put them in a place that we can all actually understand and relate to, instead of this, like, throwing this stuff at us and like, oh my God, whose side am I on? Am I this person? What's my identity? What do I do? How do I get involved? And where's my money coming from now? Like, I got a grant for this, a grant for that, but I don't relate to any of this. I'm just a person who loves making movies. And I think that the artistic ability of what people are trying to do in the film world is being shrouded with, do you know your place? And that's just my first thought. And it shows in all these films. Do you have a Latino actor? Do you have an African American? Do you have someone who represents the islands? Do you actually know the land that you're on? Which is an interesting thing, because I think that this has been something in the process about the place you are and identifying with, this is not your land. It belongs to Mother Earth. It belongs to something celestial. I don't know. But it is interesting how they're making a movement part of their platform, which, I don't know, it kind of bothers me a little bit.
Well, does it bother you that activism is now, it's not just about like, hey, let's build up emerging voices, marginalized groups, whatever. Now there's full on activism. And by the way, I did my best to stack people in the hierarchy. White guys at the bottom. We have our
other white guy.
Asian POC, I don't remember. Wait, was gay
I
Trump?
know. I wonder if
gay Trump's Asian. I'm sorry, Alan. Norm is on top. Mary Toppins.
No,
Mary
I'm dead on that.
The thing that bothers me most about woke stuff, I'll just say, is that there's no freaking sense of humor. Like, we can't even talk about it with a sense of humor. And I can't not have a sense. I grew up. Look, I'm Irish. My household, the way the way we handled family fights was who made the best jokes, right? We would goof on each other. If you took yourself too seriously, you're not going to survive in my family. You're just not going to survive in my family, right? Not at all.
Jewish, I totally get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Jews have a good sense of humor. How do you handle adversity? For me, best way to handle any type of adversity is a sense of humor about yourself. And I'm really proud to work with everyone here at Film Threat. I know that hopefully more of our writers will be joining us for this conversation. Sense of humor. Don't take yourself too seriously. Take the work seriously. And I know that we do that at Film Threat. We'll be getting to more of your comments. Let's wrap up this conversation about has Sundance gone too woke? Any final thoughts from anybody to wrap it up? Anybody who's not white people, shut the fuck up.
I'm going to shut up. I'm going to
shut up because I'm supposed to shut up.
No, I have a name.
I'm wondering, having attended the festival, one of the things that I did enjoy about Sundance is that it did recognize minorities and people who were not known to many or the mainstream. And I remember so many times walking to films or walking up Main Street, and there were little protests here and there. And I do miss that interaction. And it seems to have, I think to your point, Chris, I think it's lost its direction virtually. I think that it has more power and more interest done live. And I think that Sundance is trying to keep that going, and they're maybe relying on it too much. So
yeah, it's to the point. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Typical man talking over a woman. I did that thing.
Mansplaining.
Buddy, you should have a button that you can just mute me. But I do. Well, I wish you joined us for our earlier discussion. We talked about, should Sundance move from flu season, the winter, and move to the spring or summer? Maybe like, April, May. It's beautiful. Park City is a freaking postcard.
I live out here in the mountains. I mean, it is,
gorgeous.
Yeah, and it would be fun because more people would attend because they would be financially able to do it.
Right.
Park City is not cheap in any stretch. And that would make it a more interesting event. And they could do a lot more too. So I agree with that. I thought about that a lot. But I'll tell you this time around with Sundance in person, I'm missing it more than ever. Especially I'm done. I want this over. Because I miss this. Like I want to talk to people all day long and there's no one around.
Right. Well, you and Bill Maher are on the same page. I watched his show Real Time last night, and he was just like, we're done. Barry Weiss was on there. She's like, I'm done. We're done. I mean, look, I can go to AMC Burbank. I get a popcorn and sit in my seat the entire time, and I can slowly munch on it with no mask, right? Like, yeah. I also just believe in personal accountability and responsibility. You make the choices for you. Totally. And I think that goes, look, as someone who will judge quietly, I look at people's fashion choices. I will judge. Feel free to judge me for not wearing a mask. It's fine. I don't wear a mask outdoors, yet half the people I see in Pasadena, California are still wearing masks outdoors. I will say at night when it's actually very cold in Pasadena, maybe a mask makes sense. Or when it was very dusty during our windstorm. But you know what? Make your own choices for yourself. Do what makes sense to you. And that's just coming from me. I won't judge if you want to wear a mask too. That's up to you. Anyone else with final thoughts on Sundance going too woke?
Going too woke. No, I was going to go back up and
we'll go back to the other thing.
No. I was just going to say, I mean, I just took my family and I just went to New York City just a weekend ago, and that was at the height of the Omicron variant. And we took every single precaution. So we went to go see Ain't Too Proud, which is the Temptations musical on Broadway, went to the American Museum of Natural History. Those are all places that we felt comfortable. I researched them beforehand. I did my due diligence to make sure that we would be as safe as possible going in. We took our own personal precautions. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. But I don't want it to be at the expense of, like, I'm not going to stop living my life. And just like Sabina said, I mean, these festivals, the foundation of a festival makes it so unique and so different from everything else is the fact that we get a chance to build a community for 3 or 4 short days or 10 days or however long it runs. So I don't want to lose that experience of communal, you know, sharing at that, you know, fear of me not having taken proper precautions. I'll do what I can, but I just don't want to sacrifice, you know, what I love in order to you know, maintain some sort of worldwide balance.
Well, just to wrap it up, I'll say the precautions I take when it comes to skydiving or bungee jumping is I never do it. So I don't have the possibility of dying from that or doing any sort of extreme sport that might put me at peril. I just never do it. And so I'm very risk averse when it comes to extreme sports. I was an indoor kid and I'm an indoorsman, as I like to say on my social media profile. Anyone, I want to get
Yeah,
to a couple. Alan,
I'm going to bring up Beamer's comment here. One of the worst movies of all time that I love couldn't be made today, The Adventures of Ford Fairlane. I need to let you guys know that the majority of bad cinema has been made by white men. So there you go.
Blame me, why don't you?
You know, I mean, if you guys would get your act together and make some good movies once in a while.
Well, look, there's a lot of movies that couldn't be made today, but
Blazing Saddles for one.
Blazing Saddles, there should be. Gary Beekler of Neurotic says they should just make a modern day Blazing Saddles, like something that sort of comments on the culture, but not in a way that tells you how to think. Go back and watch Blazing Saddles. Go watch 2004 Team America. You will be blown away.
Tropic Thunder.
Exactly. And here's a good Wing It Productions. Don't hate the media, become the media. Look, I am a college dropout. Went to college for 2 years, wrote a book, required reading in college for independent film studies. My book, The Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide, which you can get. You can get this book. I'll show it to you. You can get it used on Amazon. You can get it used on Amazon. My book, Ultimate Film Festival Survival Guide, 4 editions, working on currently a 5th edition. And I'll let you guys know about that.